What if I told you that in 1972, a Canadian soul singer named Eric Mercury landed in Memphis and recorded an album so daring it fused soul, funk, and rock into something years ahead of its time? It was produced by Steve Cropper of Booker T and the MGS. Its grooves echoed with the Memphis Horns, and songs came from legends like Eddie Floyd and Mac Rice. Yet this groundbreaking record barely escaped Enterprise's pressing plant before Stax Records collapsed, and its only hit climbed the Canadian charts just as everything fell apart. Why did the album that could have changed soul music vanish almost overnight? The answer begins deep in the heart of Memphis, where economic turmoil, musical brilliance, and one electric black man collided. By 1972, the soul capital of Memphis was running on borrowed time and borrowed money. Stax Records, once the engine behind Otis Redding, Isaac Hayes, and Booker T and the MGS, was caught in a storm of bad deals and cash shortfalls. The loss of their Atlantic distribution in 1968 left Stax scrambling for national reach. Otis Redding's death in 1967 had already shaken the label's foundation. Al Bell's soul explosion in 1969 resulted in 30 singles and 27 albums released in just 8 months. That could not keep the wolves from the door. Inside the city, the music still pulsed, but the business was fraying. By the early 70s, Stax was fighting off IRS investigations and a CBS distribution collapse that stranded new records in warehouses and cut off radio lifelines. The Enterprise imprint, meant to be Stax's creative playground, became a lifeboat for risky projects. Albums like Eric Mercury's might have sounded like the future, but they had to make do with yesterday's resources. Trans Maximus Incorporated, called TMY Studios, became a refuge for musicians and producers who refused to let Memphis soul fade quietly. The studio's concrete walls and high ceilings gave every session a signature echo. Horns sounded like they bounced off Beale Street, and the rhythm section locked in with a grit that could not be faked. TMI was the domain of Steve Cropper, the man whose Telecaster shaped the sound of Green Onions and Knock on Wood. Cropper's steady hand and deep Memphis roots offered a kind of creative stability that Stax's accountants could not provide. Cropper's presence in the studio was a guarantee of authenticity. Even as budgets shrank and promotional plans vanished, he brought together the best session players: Jim Johnson on bass, Richie Simpson on drums, the Memphis Horns, crafting grooves that kept the Stax spirit alive. TMI's staff worked long hours, sometimes for little more than the promise of a finished record. The room itself became an instrument, its acoustics binding together the raw energy of the musicians with the city's uncertain heartbeat. Every track that left TMY in those days carried the weight of a label in decline and a city determined to keep its sound alive. For Eric Mercury, stepping into that world meant plugging into Memphis's legacy at the very moment it was fighting for survival. That tension, musical brilliance colliding with economic struggle, soaked into every groove of the album, shaping both its sound and its fate. Enterprise Records pressed the first copies of Eric Mercury's album in early 1972, stamping each side with the matrix numbers ES0283 and ES02884. The catalog number ENS1020 linked it to a short-lived run of experimental soul releases, records that might have been too bold for the main Stax label, but too good to leave on the shelf. The Enterprise imprint acted as a laboratory for Stax, a place where risk and reinvention could slip past the accountants. For Mercury, this meant his Memphis experiment did not just exist in the ether. It became a physical object, cut into vinyl, jacketed in thick textured cardboard, and shipped out to stores that still believed in the power of a new sound. The manufacturing details tell their own story. Each LP carried the East Memphis Music Publishing stamp, anchoring Mercury's Canadian soul in the heart of the city's music business machine. The run-out grooves, etched at the pressing plant, became secret handshakes for collectors. Even now, crate diggers hunt for those ES0283 and ES0284 marks, proof that what they are holding is the real thing. The original 1972 pressing, not a later reissue or bootleg. When the album hit stores, it did so quietly. Enterprise's resources were stretched thin, and Stax's national distribution had already begun to unravel. Most copies landed in the Southeast and Midwest, but a handful made their way north, crossing the border into Canada. There, the single "I Can Smell That Funky Music" found open ears, climbing to number 30 on the RPM 100 in January 1972, a brief taste of spotlight for Mercury on Canadian radio. Despite that chart appearance and a handful of glowing reviews, the album just faded almost as quickly as it arrived. Stax's financial chaos meant promotion was minimal, and Enterprise's staff could only do so much with shrinking budgets. The record slipped through the cracks, bypassed by DJs chasing bigger names, and overlooked by a label fighting to keep its doors open. Today, original copies sell for $5 to $20, and the album's legacy lives on in collector circles. Its scarcity was fueled by the very forces that doomed its first run. The story of its release is one of ambition pressed into vinyl, then nearly lost to history, leaving behind a trail of catalog numbers and etched codes for those willing to look close enough. This is the Memphis Foundation story of Enterprise and Eric Mercury, a moment when a bold record made it out into the world, quietly, and left collectors a map to follow. The needle drops on side A, and right out of the gate, I Can Smell That Funky Music lays down a groove thick enough to walk on. Clocking in at 3 minutes and 49 seconds, the opener wastes no time. The drums hit with a crisp backbeat, Richie Simpson's snare snapping tight, while Jim Johnson's bass locks into a pocket that feels like it could go all night. Horns punch in with sharp two-note stabs, classic Memphis style, echoing the city's golden years, but with a rawer, funkier edge. Eric Mercury's voice rides on top, teasing and testifying, bending the melody with a sly grin. There is a reason this track was picked as the single. It is catchy, it is sweaty, and it is built to move a dance floor. Tucked inside the credits you will spot Eddie Floyd's name, the songwriter who gave the world Knock on Wood. Here Floyd co-writes with Mercury, adding a touch of Stax royalty to the mix. The lyric "I Can Smell That Funky Music" coming through my radio captures the album's whole spirit, a celebration of sound, memory, and the power of a good groove. Next up, Like It Should Be slides in at 3 minutes and 37 seconds. The mood shifts, but the rhythm section never lets up. Johnson's bass pulses underneath, steady and soulful, while Simpson's drums roll with a gentle swagger. The Memphis Horns lay back, letting Mercury's vocals stretch out. He sings with conviction, his phrasing smooth but never slick, channeling the ache and the hope of classic soul. There is a warmth here, a sense of longing wrapped in every note. The songwriting crafts a space where Mercury can show off his range, one moment pleading, the next almost whispering. It is the kind of track that makes you want to close your eyes and let the music wash over you. By the time Stop Looking Down kicks in, the album's momentum is undeniable. At a tight 3 minutes, this cut bursts with optimism. The rhythm section keeps things buoyant, the horns dart in and out, and Mercury's delivery turns uplifting. He urges stop looking down, start looking up, a lyric that lands like a pep talk set to vinyl. There is a bounce in the arrangement, a lightness that hints at gospel roots, but stays rooted in R&B grit. Together, these first 3 tracks lay a foundation, funky, soulful, and impossible to ignore. The band is locked in, Mercury's voice is front and center, and the grooves are fertile ground for what is about to come next. 9 minutes and 23 seconds. That Is How Long It's Time for Me to Love You stretches across the end of side A, a ballad so ambitious it feels less like a song and more like a journey. The opening is patient, almost hesitant. Mercury's voice enters with a gentle vulnerability, backed by a slow burning rhythm section that leaves space for every word to linger. Jim Johnson's bass sets the foundation, pulsing in time with Richie Simpson's delicate hi-hat, while Steve Cropper's guitar brushes the edges, never crowding the melody. As the minutes pass, the arrangement grows. Strings begin to weave around Mercury's vocals, rising in tandem with the Memphis Horns. Each section adds another layer: soft organ swells, a second set of horns, background harmonies that echo Mercury's own lines. The song is built on tension and release, with every chorus pulling back before swelling again. Midway through, the horns step forward, trading phrases with the strings in a call and response that hints at Isaac Hayes' grandest moments. The band holds steady, giving Mercury room to climb higher, his voice shifting from a whisper to a near shout. He pleads, "It's time for me to love you right now," stretching the phrase across bars and letting the emotion build until it is almost too much. Cropper's arrangement is cinematic, never rushed, always attentive to the drama in Mercury's delivery. By the 7-minute mark, the track has reached a fever pitch. Horns blare, strings soar, and the rhythm section locks in for one final push. Then, just as suddenly, the storm clears. The band pulls back, leaving Mercury alone with the last line, a quiet promise hanging in the air. This epic ballad is the heart of the album, proof that Mercury and his Memphis collaborators were not afraid to take risks when others played it safe. It is a showcase of vocal control, dynamic arranging, and the kind of studio craft that defined the best of early 70s soul. With Side. A closing on such a high, the album stands poised to pivot, ready to chase a new groove as the needle lifts and flips to Side B. Side B opens with the song Don't Stop the Feeling, a 3 minutes and 7 seconds burst that was built for the dance floor. The drums snap, the bass line bounces, and the Memphis Horns push the choruses with a shout that makes you move. Mercury's voice is playful and urgent, never letting the energy dip. There is a party in every bar, a nod to the clubs where soul and funk first clashed and found common ground. This is not nostalgia. It is Memphis pushing forward, chasing what comes next, dance and groove. Next is Wrap Me in a Map, 3 minutes and 53 seconds that shift the mood without losing momentum. The groove remains tight, but the lyrics turn inward. Mercury's voice weaves through organ swells and syncopated horns, singing of longing and searching as the band keeps a simmering tension. The restless spirit in the song mirrors Mercury's own journey. Mac Rice, famed for writing Mustang Sally, is credited with influence on this track, and you can hear that swagger in the phrasing and movement. Subtle guitar and percussion from the Memphis session crew keep the track breathing. Momentum and heart. Listen with your eyes follows 3 minutes and 18 seconds of gentle keys and restrained horns. The arrangement gives space, so Mercury's delivery can feel almost confessional. The band holds back to let each phrase land, while the Memphis Horns color the edges without crowding the melody. It is the sound of late-night reflection, when the party slows, but connections linger. Intimacy and nuance. A gift to you arrives as 3 minutes and 43 seconds of slow-burning soul. Mercury pours himself into every line, offering his voice as a present to the listener. The arrangement is lush but carefully arranged, with soft strings, warm bass, and horn lines played with tenderness that matches the lyrics. Sincerity cuts through every note, a reminder that at its core, soul music is about reaching out and connecting. Sincerity and warmth. The album closes with Over in Arkansas, 4 minutes and 24 seconds of full-throttle rock and soul. The tempo jumps, guitar riffs get grittier, and Mercury's vocals grow raw and urgent. The band lets loose, with Steve Cropper's guitar and the horn section trading licks over a driving beat. This is the sound of the road, restless, energetic, and wild. Mercury moves from deep soul to dance grooves to rock-infused funk without missing a beat. Road and release. Side B does more than finish the album. It points to the future. The grooves are tighter, the arrangements bolder, and the influences broader. Dance, funk, and soul blend in a way that hints at the coming disco wave, while Memphis grit remains in every note. Mac Rice's songwriting presence shows just how deep the creative bench ran at Stax, even as the label's fortunes were changing. By the final fade-out, the record reads like a blueprint for where soul music could go next, a map of possibilities that was ahead of its time. Blueprint and future. Every detail of this documentary's sound and structure is designed to pull listeners deep into the lost grooves of Eric Mercury's 1972 masterpiece. The goal is simple: to make the record feel immediate and alive, like a warm needle dropping into vinyl for the first time. The voice guiding the journey comes from a place of warmth and authority, a deep, resonant tone reminiscent of late-night soul DJs who once spun records until sunrise. This narration leads the mix, and it sits front and center so every story beat is clear and every fact lands with weight. The narration is set at 80% of the audio mix, ensuring clarity and focus. Music never drowns the words. Instead, music sits just beneath the voice, filling the space at 20 to 40% depending on the moment, so the atmosphere supports the story without overpowering it. The album's own tracks are woven in with care, and snippets never exceed 30 seconds. Each clip is chosen to tease a hook, to highlight a bass line, or to let a horn punch through. All uses remain within fair use, and every excerpt is faded beneath the narration to keep the focus where it belongs. These musical moments arrive like clockwork, every 30 to 45 seconds, delivering a steady stream of micro-hooks. They keep the energy moving, offering listeners a taste of the album's flavor without lingering long enough to cross legal lines or lose momentum. Throughout the documentary, a continuous bed of vinyl crackle hums beneath the mix. This is not just atmosphere, it is a sonic bridge to the past, grounding every word and every note in the tactile world of 1970s Memphis. The crackle remains subtle, never overpowering, always present as a reminder that this story is rooted in analog reality, not digital perfection. Each production choice serves a clear purpose. The 80-20 balance between narration and music keeps the facts front and center, while the soul of the record is never far behind. Clips are trimmed and timed with precision, no full choruses and no extended solos, just the essence of each track distilled into moments that intrigue and invite. When the horns on "I Can Smell That Funky Music" stab through the mix, or when Mercury's voice soars on "It's Time for Me to Love You," these flashes are enough to spark curiosity and memory, yet never enough to overshadow the story itself. Those flashes are teasers. They point to the heart of the record without giving it all away. Retention is built into the very structure. Every 30 to 45 seconds, a new detail, a new sound, or a new fact arrives. Whether it is a songwriter's name, a Matrix runout, or a burst of Steve Cropper's guitar. The pacing stays methodical, never rushed, giving each element room to breathe while keeping listeners hooked from start to finish. This blueprint is not about compliance alone, it is about honoring the album's legacy. By blending narration, music, and vinyl ambience in just the right proportions, the documentary invites listeners to experience the lost soul of Memphis as it was meant to be heard, up close, personal, and unforgettable. Today, rare copies of Eric Mercury's album change hands for less than $20, but its influence echoes in the genre-blending sounds topping charts now. As boundaries blur and lost voices resurface through the reissues and streaming, this record reminds us, real innovation often slips past the spotlight. The next revolution may already be spinning, quietly, on someone's forgotten turntable. What hidden gems are we missing right now?